Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sisto Says, powered by Design 2147 and New York City Building and Code Consulting Firm. Today I have Steve Shishko of New Age Engineering. So after 3 tries, Steve, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Your last name and my first name have been botched up by many, many people.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I apologize if I didn't say it right, but welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Always great to have you. So here we are, 2025. You were here last year.
Yes.
We spoke pretty much in depth about boilers because it was kind of the hot topic at the time because of Local Law 97, everything about going green, where we are. So, let's jump in there for a minute. But we got a lot to talk about with things that are going on about prevention and safety here in New York City, new local laws that have come into play. But I want to talk about the boilers because, believe it or not, the show did an enormous amount of traction having to do with boilers, just because, so what do I do with my boiler? Do I really just rip it out and throw it in the garbage and start over? So fill us in about what's happened over the last year and what you're seeing in the market and what commercial and residential, buildings are doing.
Yeah, so since we last spoke, this year now you have the Local Law 97 compliance reports that are going to be due in May. And New York City slapping on that large fine of 50 cents a square foot for buildings that forget to comply. I think that's per month in fines. If you don't.
It's substantial.
So now what we've been seeing is a little bit of integration into two different, like a hybrid system, I would say, is we've been seeing that where buildings were looking to fully electrify and then seeing the price tag plus the payback period plus the number of pieces of equipment they would have to have in their buildings. What we have been seeing is there's a new program that I believe should be either up to date now or is going to be going into effect, and it's called the SAFE program. And this is actually something I'm kind of excited about because it makes sense in my mind, and that is a hybrid system. So if you had a boiler with a hot water coil, what you could do is you could put in a electrified heat pump hot water heating system, tie that into your existing system, so no infrastructure upgrades, you're using exactly what you already have, and then there's a controls that you can put in so that essentially your electrified system takes priority, and then you can set it up so that maybe on very cold days you're switching back over to the boiler, and you're still using your boiler for your heating.
Which makes a lot of sense because now, I know even in my personal residence, I have a place up in the country that, when it's 10 below, the units are not as efficient. But when the temperature's around 20, they're great and they're very economical. My heating costs are much less and the house actually stays incredibly comfortable. But at some point, as it keeps getting colder, they are becoming less efficient. But if you had another system there, it would, obviously, in the colder temperatures is going to be more efficient if you were burning a fossil fuel, right? So here we are. Now they're saying, hey, wait, don't rip it all out. Maybe just do portions of it, which, again, common sense says that's a pretty good program.
I love the idea. And it goes back into the controls as well. And I think controls and really knowing how your system's operating and making sure it's operating optimally would be the way to go. But yeah, to me, that's a very exciting way of handling this type of situation because the biggest issue is still just infrastructure. What are we going to do with your steam system that has a 4-inch pipe and you can't reuse it? So now what are you going to do? You can't go to hydronic.
Right.
The VRF systems, you're ripping apart your building. But there are some really cool things too that we've learned about the electrification, such as like if you put air source chillers on your roof and you are ready to spend that capital improvement, there's something called heat recovery. So any of the waste heat that the system is getting, you can then channel that into your domestic hot water system. And
then reuse it there.
Yeah, so there are some cool technologies that we've been seeing that where it starts making a little bit more sense. It's still just all it comes down to dollars and cents.
You know what's really interesting about that is that there was a gentleman that was on a couple of previous shows. His name was Patrick Beasley, and he's from a company called Runwise. And Runwise says, look, just pump the brakes. You don't always have to take everything you have and throw it in a dumpster and start over. And a lot of what they do is monitoring of the building, monitoring their steam traps, that they're not stuck wide open and just pumping steam out the window, right? Monitoring when people in the middle of the winter are opening their windows because one apartment's 85 and the apartment 3 doors down has a stuck steam trap and it's 55. And he was saying that the analysis that they do for these apartment buildings is that they find that a lot of their waste is not in the equipment, but it's in the humans using the system.
Yeah.
So one of the things that he was saying is that although Local Law 97 is there, and there are a lot of penalties and things, but from a common sense savings wise, if your system is running right, they're not as bad as people think they are. The problem with it is that they don't maintain their traps, or they got windows open, or they got they got antiquated thermostats. They're not getting the data to help them use their system at a much more efficient level, that they're actually using it in a way that it's detrimental to them, and it costs them more to run it. But if it was run efficiently, it'd be a lot better.
Oh, I mean, I'm still of the mentality that if you have, especially an existing steam system, with hydronic, you can put in condensing boilers, high efficiency. But when it comes to a steam system, optimizing your existing system and dialing it in as tight as you can possibly get it. And if it needs to be replaced and you don't have the funds to do the electrification, which I still am on the fence on, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Getting the right size boiler in, getting your air venting dialed in so the full system is balanced, replacing your steam traps to make sure those are all working, getting something like Runwise, which we've done in a few buildings, and I got to say their dashboard's great. We have a couple of the Axon is another company that Dual Fuel does.
Well, there's tons of them coming out now. But
and there's so many benefits on top of the energy saving measures. Like you actually get to monitor your system in a way that makes sense. You'll know if you have a flame failure on your burner, so you know why it stopped heating up the water.
Like me, we're renovating a house the other day. I get there and it's 48 degrees in the house. I'm like, what the heck? Go down, boiler's only 2 years old, got a whole new hydro system in the house, got no heat. And sure enough, I call up my plumber and he's like, oh, did you just get an oil delivery? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, your filter's clogged. They probably did, right? Yeah. So it was that simple. The guy came 2 minutes, he emptied it, cleaned the filter, vacuumed it out, ran the vacuum pump, got the air out of it, fired it up. It's been good ever since. But the gentleman was explaining that through Runwise, looking at the dashboard, you can see where the failure was, and you can diagnostic from wherever you are. It's amazing. Whereas before, you got to send the maintenance guy. He's got to get in. He's got to look around. He doesn't know what he's looking at. Yeah, boss, we got no heat. Yeah, well, we know we got no heat.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually just before this meeting. I was at a building. They're losing 500 gallons of water, which they would have never known, at least if Runwise hadn't told them that you're losing 500 gallons of water. You have a leak.
Right. So, again, we're not doing a promo for Runwise.
But
that's fine because he was on the show. But what I love about it is that it brings consumer awareness to people that sometimes it's not your systems, it's how you're using your systems for you to use them more efficiently. Create less leaks, less insurance problems, not buying as much water, 500 gallons a month. In New York City, that's just you burning dollars down the drain.
Well, it's also with 500 gallons of water, if you have 160-degree water being dumped down the drain and you have to heat up 40-degree water, that becomes BTUs, and now you're burning more fossil fuels for that.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of things, but to jump right into some of the local laws, Steve. We do our newsletter every week. Anybody can sign up for it. Just go to the design2147.com webpage and you can sign up. We're talking about and we're alerting people that doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, if you got an open flame, whether it's a gas range or a boiler or a hot water heater, you're going to need gas detection now. So tell us a little bit about that. It's going to start May 1st, but fill us in about, a little bit about the nuances of the law and what people need to do.
Yeah, so we just started looking into it with a building where we're going to be doing like a full compliance of all the different local laws because they're becoming a lot.
Great idea. Because there's a bunch.
Oh, yeah. And when we started looking into it, this was the one, I believe it's part of Local Law 152, which is the periodic gas test inspections. And in addition to that, now what they want is to have a gas leak detection device in the room where the range or open flame is.
Or within certain feet.
Yes. Right. So it seems like what we found with this other building is that when you're doing that, you should lump that in with carbon monoxide detection and with any of the other local laws that are required inside of the dwelling units so that you can essentially just get this all done in one fell swoop rather than in piecemeal.
So you have your smoke detectors, you have your carbon monoxide, and now you're going to have gas. So one of the gentlemen, John Rusk, who was one of the co-founders of ProCentry, they actually have their own gas detection. And and what they did, and they did this several years ago, And they have them in a lot of old law tenements and the older buildings here in New York City, where they see it on a dashboard also. But they also can check the levels of how much pressure is in the apartment, so that the super doesn't go in there like a fireman and just open the door and the thing blows up, right? They can sense it. So he was telling me about it, and then sure enough, he was explaining that May 1st this was coming into effect, and of course we've already had it on our radar. So if you're in a dwelling unit and you got a gas range within a certain number of feet, I think it's 10 feet if I'm not
That sounds
mistaken,
correct. Yeah.
you need to put this, and this will, in case someone leaves it on, in case the gas cock is leaking, in case the hose is leaking, you're going to know that besides that you could smell it, you're going to get an alarm now that says, hey, something's not right. You need to get the heck out of here. Or by the way, you left your burner on all night,
Yeah, I mean that's incredible technology that they'll be able to do that, and it almost sounds like what New York City is going to start to do is push people, instead of having an energy management system or some sort of centralized where you're monitoring a system. It's going to start to make sense for buildings to start doing a full building-wide management system, like a BMS
Well,
system.
and part of the problem is because, and this happened to me, my family has always owned buildings, right? And over the years, people hear this buzzing noise, and, I'll have a tenant call and say, hey, my smoke detector's not working. And I get there and it's on their, their dresser. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not working? Yeah, it was buzzing all night. I ripped it out of the wall. And this happens always.
Oh, and that's such a natural reaction. Your smoke detector comes off, you panic, you rip it off the wall, pull the battery out,
Right.
whatever you can do to get it to shut up.
Not because there was a problem, right? So one of the other local laws is about closing your doors, right? That they don't have the proper closures on them. We hear about this in multiple dwellings all the time.
Yeah.
A fire starts, people run out, and when they run out, the fire's there, the door doesn't self-close, and now all this oxygen's pumping into the apartment, and that fire spreads from place to place.
Yeah.
So again, it sounds like common sense, but it costs money to maintain these things. You need a program, like you said, right? Who's going down the checklist to say, hey, I did my gas inspection, I did my carbon monoxide inspection, I did my fire alarm inspection, I did my gas pressurization test, I did my gas detection, and you go down this list, and it used to be only one or two items, but now, based on the list that you shared me, right, you sent me 2 pages explaining them. So, kudos to you and your firm for being able to simplify that for apartment buildings or homeowners or whoever, to say, hey, you need to be aware these things apply to you.
Yeah. It really, when we started diving into that list, there were some things I didn't even know about that, and one of them was like the lead paint. And I spoke with an asbestos investigator who said, oh, yeah, you're supposed to have a full 10-year plan for remediation and this and that, and it's a whole booklet that we prepare, and every building is supposed to have it. Oh, man.
Right.
It's really, it starts getting, I feel for some owners with all the different compliances they have.
Well, and I think a lot of it, I think a lot of things like this come out of insurance companies and liability.
Yeah.
It's a lot about risk management, right? So if you could put a $12 device, and I'm making it up, I don't know what this device is going to cost, but let's say it's $25, right? Smoke detector today is $10, right?
Correct.
Millions of them, right? But let's say the gas detection is $20. For $20, the amount of risk management you have applied to that apartment for their lives, for the people who work there, and for the firemen is tremendous. And it was a $25 investment. But if the city doesn't pass a local law, who's going to go out on their own and just do it?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's 2 things with that. And I was just speaking with a plumber earlier today as well. There's some buildings with some gas lines that are in bad shape. I mean, really bad shape. And then the other thing goes back to the monitoring, though. I agree with you that having that alarm in there is fantastic. And then it's just the question of where's that alarm going and who's getting notified, or is it just an audio-visual alarm in the cellar? Is someone going to be able to pay attention to that?
That's why the systems that are fully monitored, I think, I don't remember if it was ProSentry or Runwise, that they actually have a data. It's like being in a control room.
Yeah.
That someone's monitoring it, and then it's in the management office of the building. And what they were saying is the guy's looking, the person, right, is in the management office. You're seeing the same thing 24
Yeah.
hours a day, 7 days a week. And they go, even when the bleeps would come up, they'd be like, bypass it. Because it was the same, but when they're monitoring it, as the data's coming in, they get alerts, they get alarms and say, hey, Charlie, you're supposed to go to the 4th floor because I think we got a leak in the toilet. There's water leaking all over the place. Whereas before, yeah, that thing's been leaking for a while. I just didn't get to it. Click the button. But meanwhile, it was a full-blown flood.
Yeah.
Right? So you're right. Who's watching it? How are they getting the data? And is it just audio and visual? And I'm going to rip it out of the wall and put it down and let the gas leak continue.
Yeah.
I think the other big one is going to be these lithium batteries. They're going to have to do something. This is crazy.
Well, some of the carbon monoxide, I was kind of cool. They have 10-year lifespans on some of them, and I some of the leak detections we saw for the gas were also 10-year. But yeah, I mean, with the monitoring, if you do save a building owner, or if you save these people site visits, or the investigation it takes to find why did you rip this off,
down, just to go check it, or
then
whatever.
to me they start making a lot of sense. And those monitoring services, I would imagine that companies like Runwise have a really hard time with actually doing the monitoring. It seems like a very daunting task.
It does. But again, I think that, like anything else, I think that you've made such a great point about it, is how do you get the data and what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Right? If this room's 85 and this one's 55, but you're not looking at it, it's as if you don't have the system, right? So I'm sure the same thing applies to you when you go to a building owner and say, hey, you're building this new fit out and you're doing this retail store. We're going to design your mechanical system and your plumbing system for this type of store with this type of equipment. This is the best system, but these are the parameters you need to stay in, which is don't have the workers constantly turning on and off the thermostat.
Yeah.
Because then it's counterproductive of the money you spent to put the proper system. It just doesn't work.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we did a building with a full HVAC system, one of the things that we had to do is, well, we did as the engineer was went in and checked all the different thermostats that were installed for the Mitsubishi system we put in, and made sure that we put like the nighttime setbacks, everything. So because you have a smart system, but if you're not using it, it's not a smart system anymore.
Right. Now it becomes the old antiquated system.
Yeah, you're back
like
on
my
off.
parents. Oh, we're going away for the weekend. Turn the air conditioner up to 80. You get home, and then they would run the air conditioner at full blast for 2 days to get it to cool down. So what did you really save? You didn't save anything. So we talked a little bit about boilers. We talked a lot about gas. You did touch on gas inspection, so I'd like to touch on that. So you, again, great point for our listeners is you have a building, 75 years old. People don't just open their walls and start ripping out their gas piping. But gas piping is not infinite. It's got a finite period.
Yeah.
There's moisture in it. It rots from the inside out. It rusts from the inside out. People make changes. People move in, people move out, they change the oven, they change this, they change this. So, it's mandated that at a certain pressure you have to, every couple of years you're required to put a gas test on and make sure that your pipes can hold a certain amount of pressure. So as an engineer, what are you hearing about that? And from what I heard from plumbers in New York City, a lot of systems are failing.
Oh, I mean, anytime it's come up where Local Law 152 has failed any portion of it, and it could be a future connection, it could there anything that might look, or they just have bad corrosion on their pipes, it's like 3 months of speaking with the building owner before we can ever take action, if that, and sometimes it's longer, because they know that the second we start touching a portion of the system, the meter's getting shut down, and that meter's not getting turned back on until every riser's tested, everything is pressure tested. And for a building with 100 units, 120 units, that's a terrifying prospect because...
Oh, and just ripping the risers out. Then they're old buildings. There could be asbestos in the walls. There's lead paint on the wall. There's, it could be anything. When you think of these laws, you're thinking, I don't know what we think, but when you go to a building, you go, oh my God, this really applies to this. Look, there's 400 meters down here. What are we doing?
Yeah, it was one building. They had one future connection, and I think it was like level 3 or 4 corrosion, whatever. It's below it's not as bad as the worst one, but it's bad. And just on the meter bank. That's it. The rest of the piping looks great. So we're going to have to shut the meter down. And then the building starts panicking. So then it's, well, how long for shutdown, which isn't a clear answer. And then it's,
And then once you put the pressure test on it again, you know, you touch this and you move that. Did we loosen something down the road? You know, because we know once we back this pipe out, did we loosen it up over there? Well, that was already old to begin with, so now that's leaking over there. Next thing you know, you're doing a whole retrofit.
depressurizing a system can cause a leak, right? Because you just took a pipe that's been in operation for 70 years and you just depressurized it. So now any flakes or things that might have never been held in place just might have fallen off. And,
Right, and they're all coming down the riser.
and then every building wants to know, well, what does it look like to electrify it? Everything for my stoves. And that's another daunting task because you have to upgrade every meter bank. You got to run new risers. And it's the same. It's like the same project, but both ways.
It sounds easy. Just convert to electric.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy. I love it.
Just do it. So, other than gas, we talked a little bit about gas. Sprinkler obviously has been around for a while. You know, mandated several years ago, if not 10 years ago, for certain buildings had to comply and upgrade. You know, we talked off the air a little bit about it. That I saw something, and I'm pretty accurate with it, that there are proposals now throughout certain parts of, I heard it in Long Island, that they're proposing that all buildings in the future, not just 3 stories, but all buildings may want to be sprinklered. I mean, that seems like a pretty daunting task if that's true, because of just the amount of water, the pressure you need, and what homeowners would need to do. And it was on new construction, it wasn't on existing.
Oh, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, so they were talking about new one families, you know, and again, you probably wouldn't need a lot of heads to cover a house, but again, it's still another layer. It's something you have to maintain. Have you heard anything about that?
New construction, I believe I have heard the same thing, was that anything that goes up now, you need to have sprinklers. In New York City, the codes regarding sprinkler don't explicitly give an exemption for any multifamily. I think the only exception for sprinkler in New York City is detached 1-2 family homes, and it might be just 1 family homes.
Right, and even fire alarms now, if it's more than a couple of stories, you're required to put something in. Because it's more about the monitoring than it is about the actual.
Yeah, it's one of those weird systems where it's really hard to argue against, right? Like, why would I not put a sprinkler system in my house? It's like, it looks ugly. It's like, well, if it saves you from burning alive, then maybe you should just put it in.
You know, and they used to say that about, you know, the split units, right? The Mitsubishi units and stuff. And I did it in my house. And when they first came out, my wife's like, I don't want that in my living room. And then we put them in up in the country, and she loves them because she wants it a little cooler. And after a while, she didn't even realize that they were there, right? So you go around Europe, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
They don't have what we have like here. You know, everything was those little units, and they stick them on the front of the building, the top of the building.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Everywhere, because it was easy and efficient.
I mean, the systems are unbelievably simplistic. I mean, there's 2 pipes to the unit, electric, and a drain. And you're done. It's an incredible system.
Steve, I just did it up in my country house, and I have a big garage, and you know, it's cold in the winter. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put a Mitsubishi unit in, or a Dayton, whatever we put in. Maybe it's a Samsung now. I don't even know. And I set it at 50, and you say to yourself, it's 50 degrees. That's cold, but it is the greatest thing ever. I could leave everything I want in there, not worry about it freezing. It doesn't run a lot of electricity. And in the summer, you can put it on a 90-degree day. You could put it on, 75, and it just gets all the humidity and the dampness. And the guy came, 2 guys, a half a day. They set the unit, ran the pipe. The electric was there. I mean, the electrician set the whole thing up, got a permit, was done in a couple of days.
Yeah. I mean, I just did Central AC in my house, and it's been great. My wife loves it. And I kept my boiler because I love boilers still.
Yeah.
And I like it for the same reason. When you have those really cold days, it's nice to have the boiler running just to make sure you're maintaining heat. And then, I'm more interested for the air conditioning, but my wife loves the heating on it too.
Yeah, my wife too. And so we'll circle back to boilers because, at the end of the show, no. You did. First of all, we're touching on a lot of topics that a lot of people do call me personally or call the office about is, hey, what am I doing? We sent that update. Hey, when is it going to, where do I buy these? Listen, I don't know where you buy them. I don't even know what's the right device for New York City. But again, if you just go to the New York City website, there's so much information out there for them to help you to do those things. But as we go forward, you know, when we met last year, we were talking about people panicking about ripping their boilers out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what are we gonna do? So we did talk a little bit at the beginning, but I want to circle back to it. There are still situations where we're getting filings that they're still using fossil fuel for a boiler
Yeah.
because the capacity, the size, you know, you can't. Not everything can be electric.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that what you're seeing as well?
Oh yeah, I mean we've definitely still been seeing building owners that are putting in boilers regardless of local law 97. What our experience has been, it seems like a lot of people are just hesitant. I think anytime New York City comes out with a local law, there's always the question of, yes, you're threatening this, are you going to enforce it? Or how much is my fines going to be? What's my fine? And sometimes I think it takes that first fine to really push things over the edge, and
because
see.
they don't understand their ROI on ripping it all out and putting it back.
Or worse, they do, and they see that it's awful. You know?
Well, we've had that call from the biggest sector that we saw the biggest hit with that, to be honest with you, where we get the most confrontational owners who call us because they're actually upset at the city, and for some reason they think we work for the city,
Yes,
but we
yeah.
actually work for them, and we want to help them, is on the industrial side.
Oh, I would imagine so.
The manufacturing and industrial side, they are panic stricken with the fines, the disruption of their tenants that are renting their buildings. They seem to be the most agitated.
Well, I'd imagine they have such larger systems across the board. We don't do too much work on the industrial side, so I haven't had those same conversations. But we're beginning those conversations on the multifamily and commercial side as well.
Right, and the other place that are getting hit the hardest from is a lot of co-op boards have called us.
Oh, man.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford it,
And they can't afford the fines. They can't afford the new system. They own antiquated. Now, I don't want to say antiquated, but they were built in Mitchell-Lamas, built in the 60s, the 70s. They got major problems trying to upgrade. Like you said, lead, asbestos, just across the board, everything. Then when they open it, well, it's open now. Should we do the gas? Well, we just finished doing the gas. Now you're giving it, you know, it's not just one thing. You know, for them, it's been one thing after another.
Yeah, I mean, so there's two things we've been seeing on the co-op board. And one of the things that really kind of struck me was a co-op or a condominium is a bunch of one-family homeowners that are now flipping the bill to upgrade a building that
A building.
is not for
Not
profit.
an apartment.
Yeah. So when you think about it in those terms, it starts kind of making a little bit more sense why they'd be the way they are about being hesitant to do these upgrades, hesitant to jump in and spend $3 million on a heating upgrade. You know, it gets crazy.
And how about, I have a perfect example. My brother-in-law is the president of a co-op board in Long Island City and Astoria. And 8-9 years ago, they upgraded all their boilers. They made a huge investment.
Yeah.
You know, and electricity costs more, everything else. So they keep raising the monthly, you know, maintenance fees, but you can't surcharge them. So how are they going to do it? Where are they going to get the funding? Where are the grants? Where are the opportunities? And that's where I think a lot of the, the people here in New York City are frustrated. Is I understand you want us to do it, but you got to help us.
I'm going off of that. At the end of this year, the refrigerant R410A is going to be discontinued.
Right.
And of course, you're going to put fines for local law 97 in place, and then also force everyone to change the refrigerant that every installer was used to installing. And I think I may be incorrect on this. I think it's R134A. On top of that, they've forced the manufacturers of 134A to put updated controls and safety controls on their devices. So not only did you upgrade your refrigerant to a different refrigerant, change the manufacturing process, change the certification, but you're also making the units more expensive with health. Like,
Right, and the truth of the reality of that is that just gets passed along to the consumer,
Over and
and the
over.
consumer can't afford it. A lot of times, these buildings cannot afford this.
I'm just curious how far people can get kicked and kicked and kicked
Right,
and kicked
you're
until
right.
finally you're like, okay, I'm done. This is an absurd It gets crazy. It would be one thing if you just stuck with one thing, got it done.
That's
okay,
my
guys,
point.
not for
So
no-
you implemented the sprinkler thing, then you implemented the gas inspection, then you implemented the sidewalk thing, they're getting hit in every million directions. So
It really is sad to see. Just stick with one, get it done, and then go to the next.
agreed. So, as you know, because you've been on the show before, we always try to wrap the show up by, the famous Andrew Peters line from Curry and Brown. The rearview mirror is this big, the windshield's this big. We need to look forward, not behind us, right? Give me your best guess on where you think the local law 97 compliance is going to be. Do you think a lot of people are going to take the fines versus doing the work for the first phase?
So there's two things. I think there are going to be some buildings that I think most buildings are going to start accepting that there's going to be a fine annually, and they're going to end up passing on to shareholders, or the private owner is going to eat it. Another worry I have, and I'm glad that we didn't do too much on the energy side, is I worry that people are going to forget to submit their reports, not out of negligence. It's been done, but it sat for 3 years and they did not submit it. And that I'm not jealous of energy consultants right now in that way, because if you forget to put your report,
that is a great, great point, because, I'm going to give you one because you're in the boiler world, right? So many years we used to do the local law boiler reviews for our clients, because the insurance company or a firm like yours or a firm like Parado would go out and do the annual boiler inspections, right? And if you were a private entity, you had the form and you had a check, and you put them together and you sent it in. And then when they came back and said, you owe us $1,000 a year for the last 5 years, the person who owned the building, if it was a multiple dwelling, would say, no, I don't, because here's my 5 reports and here's my 5 canceled checks. But if you were a nonprofit, it was fee exempt. So you just put in the form. Well, now you don't have the canceled check because you didn't have to pay. And they got hit with fines because there was no receipt.
wow.
So you bring up a great point.
I get
that you
nervous.
file your local law 97 report. How are they tracking it? How are they monitoring it? And when they call me 2 years from now and say they want this $10,000 fine because I didn't report it, and you actually did, what are our clients or the energy consultants submitting to the building department or to the agency, and what type of receipt are they getting to say they actually filed it?
That makes me.
That is a great point.
I'm more concerned actually right now, like moving forward in the next few months, is forgetting to submit that report, or just having one slip through the cracks on a 100,000 square foot building and you get a $50,000 fine month over month.
So because I'm older than you by probably twice your age, because you look quite young compared to me. I would love for you to share that with me, because we would like to add that to our newsletter.
Okay.
And just remind people that on this date, based on this criteria, your reports are due, and just a friendly reminder. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'll be happy to, because we've been reminding all of our buildings. Get
No,
your
I
energy
appreciate
consultant
that.
on the phone and make sure that report's submitted, because they just opened up the portal, I think, like 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay, great. No, that's awesome. Well, Steve, first of all, I always thank everyone who comes on the show to take time away from their busy schedule to come and spend some time with me, and just inform people in New York City about all these local laws that are going on. I always love your energy. Love the way you dress. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anytime.